Good afternoon. Well, it ain't afternoon yet. Good morning. See, where I'm from, it's almost afternoon because my stomach continually tells me that, right? Hi, my name is Dr. Peter Eley, and I'm from Fayetteville State University. I'm associate professor there in math education, and I spend my days and nights teaching teachers how to be math teachers and working with wonderful North students like yourself. I was invited here by Dr. Green to come in and share some of the work that we've been doing. And he said, well, give me something interactive, give me something that's relevant, give me something that is fun, that you're going to walk away with some takeaways. And I was like, oh, I've been spending all this time with Emdin, and Emdin is beating me over the head with this hip-hop ed. And if you know his work, I'm referring to Christopher Emdin, wrote New York bestseller book for people, for white folks who teach in the hood, and the rest of y'all too. Y'all familiar with that book, or at least heard of it? New York bestseller, and he's been on the list for like 2 years now. And he talks about reality pedagogy. And his work is in science ed, so I was like, well, I'm in math ed. Let's see what this looks like from a math ed point of view. So in this work here today, oh, there we go. I want to talk about reality pedagogy and what reality pedagogy really is. And you're going to find out how hip-hop ed comes into all of this and what part it plays. I know the first thing when people hear hip-hop, they think automatically rap. And I'm probably going to bust that myth to death today for you. Is that a part of it? Yes, but it's a whole culture. It's the b-boy, it's the dancing, it's the break. It's more of anything a cultural expression. Like in the 60s, they had the Love Child, and y'all had Woodstock. Well, not you all, but you know, your parents' parents now had Woodstock, and all these things were just not everybody, but these things were just an extension of who we were and how we chose to express ourselves in our work and in our culture at that particular time. So reality pedagogy is more just an approach to teaching that begins with realities and functions. You cannot teach the kids if you do not know the kids. This goes for inner city, rural, anywhere. I see a constant theme, and you're probably going to hear it over and over as we go through these workshops, of getting to know your students. What that's going to cause, it's going to cause me to be uncomfortable. I might go some places I typically don't go. I might go to some things that I typically don't go to. You know, for me, I was in the area, I'm not one of those ones who just came out of school and straight started doing this. I paid my dues. I was a middle school teacher. I was a high school teacher. And I was certified to teach science. So I went through this whole thing in my community in North Carolina. North Carolina is mostly rural, as many of you probably would know, outside of Charlotte and Raleigh, and maybe a little bit of Greensboro. We had a lot of students who would come in who were starting to be Hispanic. They were coming in working in the factories, and of course North Carolina at that time was still the #1 producer of tobacco, so a lot of them were coming in as migrant workers to work the farms. And one of the things and one of the realities that students often brought to me was they'd talk about soccer, or they would call it football. Now I'm thinking, a big guy like me, y'all know I play football a little bit. And so when somebody says football, I'm thinking, oh, we talking about the pigskin, and these guys were talking about soccer. So, in America, everybody else in the world calls it football. We call it soccer. Like everybody else want to measure on this and we want to measure on that. It's just who we are, right? But somebody's got to be the one. So even in that sense, what we find is those students kept talking about football, and I knew nothing. I knew of soccer, but I didn't know the rules. When they were talking about somebody being offsides and all these kind of things, and it really didn't interest me because it was soccer. And soccer was what the people who couldn't play football, American football, played. But to engage in those students often had conversations around football, soccer being soccer. So what I did is I got to a point that I had to go and learn the rules of soccer. Not that it was my thing, but I did it because I wanted to be able to connect with them, because the reality was the Hispanic community got together on Sundays, and they went to the vacant football fields while the rest of us was watching it on TV, and they played football all day. And that's where their community was. That was their social. It wasn't, as African Americans, at least in North Carolina, church is a lot of our social community. But for the Hispanics in North Carolina, a lot of their community was going to play football, and they would have a whole thing. They would have their little taco trucks and stuff set up on the side, It'll be a full event of them just playing amongst themselves. So this is where the students were. So for me to be able to help students there, I needed to understand a little bit of their reality. And one of those things for me, I was always engaged in sports, was to learn the rules of soccer. So when certain things were happening, certain players were happening, and it even go so far as to walk in there with a Madrid jersey on, they was like, Mr. Eley got a Madrid jersey. What do you know about that? You know, and my limited knowledge, I act like I knew a little bit. But it started the conversation because I became relevant. I was kind of cool to them because I at least showed that I could step outside of the box. And this is what you're going to find out a lot with reality pedagogy is you stepping out the box to find out who these kids really are and where they're from. And then you are already smart enough. You already been given enough tools to take that and put that into a form that they'll be able to accept the teaching from you. Are we all following me? Am I going too fast? All right, because I have a tendency to be Speedy Gonzalez. So what you're going to find as we go forward that all hip-hop it is for us here is just another tool. All right? So here at hip-hop, this reality pedagogy, the way Emdin describes it is he has this thing called cogents. They're cogenitive dialogues, but we call them cogents. Co-teaching, cosmetology, I can't talk today, cosmetology, context versus content, competition, and curation. So let's talk about these cogents. So the cogent groups are just authentic exchanges of ideas. In hip hop, they would call this a cipher. What is a cipher? When the guys get in a little group and they start what they call battle rapping each other, right? So basically, to a certain degree, they always trying to one up each other. When I grew up, we used to call that playing the dozens, right? Or snapping or joning on somebody. And basically what you do is you try to hold the biggest insult you can to somebody else, and you try to find another insult that was bigger, but it was all in fun and competition, right? So in the cipher, what they're doing is they're going back and forth in this dialogue. Now, have you ever seen any kids in a rap group cipher? They're all engaged. It looks something like this, and everybody's like this full attention. And you know what? It's a structure. It's respectful because they wait till they finish their bars so then you can be heard, right? So then you speak and you speak what? Uninterrupted. And if they like what you're saying, they cheer you on. Ooh. Oh, hey, right? I don't know about you. Who would like a class that's engaging like that when we start talking about the science and the mathematics of what we're doing? And it's coming from them. So we're more what? The facilitators of that learning. So this is what he's talking about in this cogent. So this is that call and response. You know, you hurl some insults on me, right? And I wait, and then I get my turn, and we're being what? We're going back and forth. What does that look like? Or how would that look if that was your science class? How would that look if that was your mathematics class? Because what happens is, for me to even be able to haul these, in the form of hip hop, these insults and stuff at her, I have to know her. I have to observe her. I have to study her. I'm going to look at what kind of shoes she got on. I'm going to look at her glasses. Are they Walmart or are they Gucci? I'm going to look, see if she got any rings. She got that Hollister on. They ain't really hip hop, but, I'm going to do a full study because I'm engaged. Now, if this is in your classroom, the same thing happens. I cannot win the battle if I don't know the information. So now I'm motivated to learn the information, so I engage in self-study because I'm motivated to study. Why? Because I want to be better than you at this. I want to win this battle. I want to win this competition. Are y'all following me so far? All right, so next part of this, co-teaching. Now, I know many of us, those of you all are already in the class or those who are ready to go to the class, we spend a lot of time preparing lessons and all these kind of things, getting ready for our students. And we always have our students in mind when we do this, but how many of us actually do it with our students? How many of your students actually engage in the process? I spend a lot of time teaching mine and say, well, this is how you do these lesson plans. But I've never had the opportunity to sit down and model the lesson plans for them with me. I want them to see my process. See, this stuff requires you to be vulnerable. It requires them to almost say, well, you know what? I too got to see. It's going to be all right. Because sometimes our students see us as what? Invincible, right? That, she must got all A's in math. And I sit here and tell you with a PhD in math that I got some C's, a lot of them. But I made it. And when I put that it's Dr. Eley on it, they don't ask me what the GPA was because it's assumed, right? But see, we don't want to tell our students that we struggled in math in the beginning. We just want them to think that we came out and we just knew it all to start with. And some of us, we did have to work at it. Some of us didn't pass practice the first time. The second time either. But we made it, right? So we got this grit and this resiliency that we want to see in our students, yet we want to hide away like we ain't never struggled. This is what makes you real. This is the reality in it. It's like, you know what? If Mr. John struggled and he made it now, you know what? I can make it too. Because they see that through him versus we sit on this pedestal like we've never done nothing, right? So in the co-teaching, sometimes I get in here, I put this stuff together and I don't get it right. I come in, I bombed the class, and you knew I bombed it too. The students engage and they become the experts in the work. Well, you can't become the expert in the work if you don't know the work. Again, motivation for them to go back and what? To study it for themselves. So when they sit down with me and we're going to co-teach this lesson, I need to know you know this part. I need to know you know what slope is. I need to know that you know the slope formula and how to apply it. Because once they understand, their job is going to be what? To go back and teach their peers. Look at some of the things they do. So for instance, these are quotes coming from students. This one student said, let me see if Nikki will understand it my way. Because you got it from me, but you know a way because you already in the culture. Hey, girl, it's just like when you was doing them cornrows for Ray Ray and they were all cool and stuff. It's that, how you always got that same distance, you were using that thing? Well, it works kind of like that. I don't know those things. I'm not in those communities. But they do. And they know how to code switch, right, to make it relevant to their peers. They're your biggest advocates and you don't even know it. You don't have behavior problems when they doing it because it's like, man, stop tripping, dog. I'm teaching today. Can you pass me the marker, please? Meaning, hey, let me show you how it's done. Versus most of the time in our math classes, it's us up there, where back when I was teaching on the overhead, sweating all over the overhead. I don't know about y'all, but North Carolina gets, I think my wife said about 95 up there today, and it's hot as it is down here. And I used to be sweating all over them little overheads. They got smart boys. I was like, wow. Co-teaching is like us helping us. We have conditions that we understand, like the ways I was teaching. So here again, the students engaging. These are some of the things that the students are saying when they got to be involved in co-teaching. The teacher explains things, but he's always confused. Now, we think we're doing a great job. We do, right? That's why we teach. But what I think I'm doing versus what they're actually getting can be two different things. That's why I have that. I think I might be doing a great job, but I don't know. I go back and look at the camera. People want to engage. That one was playing on their cell phone. So now I'm trying to go back and what? Look at my teaching. What can I do to have everybody engaged fully all the time? So this is always that self-reflection as being a reflective practitioner, not just at your level, but at our level too. If we're going to improve the practice, right? So let's talk about a co-shared responsibility for each other, learning marked by shaped roles, supportive statements, consistent encouragement, and multiple transitions. So remember we was talking about in the hip-hop how they were going back and forth and they supporting each other. Everybody has a role in your classes. So this is right here is where they had the role of the, this is just a sample of the roles that they had. where students were assigned certain roles. This will make sure that the calculators were counted up, and we didn't lose them because my county don't have enough calculators. We got one classroom set, and they don't leave the room. Yes? I'm the only one teaching rural counties that don't have any money. Or one set of textbooks in North Carolina, now we don't even have them no more. So using all these kind of things, give them responsibility. And I know some of you said, that sounds cheesy, that's the stuff. But I don't know about you. Do you remember, maybe it was just me, when we used to have those things called blackboards? And it was a privilege to bang out the erasers, right? And I used to, oh my God, who was going to get to bang out the erasers on Friday? And now I look at it as an adult, I was like, we was free labor. Because they needed to be done, right, from all the chalk the whole week. But it became a competitive thing that it was actually, if you got an A on the spelling test, you got selected to go do the work. And I know these little things we said, but it brings a sense of community in your classrooms. If it's her time to change the batteries in the calculator on Friday, she gonna show up on Friday. We have stories where students were supposed to go different places and do different things, and they changed their mind because it was their time to change the batteries out in the calculator. And I know, y'all, these little things go a long way. I know I'm in the South. Maybe I can quote this real quick. You know, the Bible says this thing says the small foxes that destroy the vine. So it's just the little stuff. It's the little things that you change is going to take you a long way. And one of those things is assigning roles in the classroom and holding them to that and giving them expectation. You are expected to this, this, and this, or you will no longer have this role. Content and context. So we have content, context and content. So context, you always got to be mindful of where you are and some of the places that you all are working in. Some of you in very rural districts, some of you in very political districts, some of you in really richy districts. I mean, you know your context way better than I do. If you don't, you should start studying it. Then one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to get off work one day or during the summer and walk to the community that you teach in. Walk it. You know, but it's the rule. Walk it. You'll be surprised some of the things that you will see, you will observe, and you'll be like, oh my. I think my biggest fault as a teacher was my ignorance. I just assumed way too many things. And to me, that was in a lot as an African-American male, because it was like, you know, we kind of came through this part. I assumed way too much on both sides. And I think a lot of things that we assume are happening are really not happening. But because we think they're happening, we react or we participate or we engage a certain way because we assume that they were happening. I assumed all the kids were eating, right? I assumed that, you know, in certain areas, all the homes had two-parent households. I assumed they had electricity. I assumed the gas was on. I assumed that they could get computer access. I assumed they can get internet access. And some of these realities, you will find out that some of this just was not happening. So some of my assignments, you know, as much as I love technology, and if you go read my bios and stuff, y'all see that's what I do most of my work in. However, and because I use technology as an equity tool, right? You know, to level the playing field. But if they don't have access to it, they can't get it. It doesn't mean anything anyway. So careful that. Then the content. We're not watering down content at all. If anything, we're up in the ante. You are still expected to learn the content. So a lot of our kids, we spend time with code switching. They come up with these nice things and these creative projects and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, great. Then they get on the test and they fail. No, we hold them accountable. Why do you fail? You rapped about it. You wrote this project about it. It's the same thing. And this is when you start that code switching part, right? That Dr. Brown's work out of Stanford is in, that code switching part is like, oh, understand, oh, this is that. You know, kind of like one of the things I mess with my foreign friends about all the time is, which bad are you today? Because you know that's bad. Go meet somebody from a foreign country, and they, especially if they just learning English, and start the conversation with the word bad. Is it bad, or is it good bad? Is it cool bad? You know, bad got like 8 or 9 different variations depending on what? Context. You know, I got told this was a bad suit. Does that mean because it's dirty or did it look good? I hope it was the context that it looked good. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we, especially we as Americans, we do this so much because it's part of our culture. It's just who we are. We've done it so much and we don't even think about it consciously because it's one of them things that's almost like innate in us. We got like 5 words for the same thing. So, how am I doing on time? All right, so here I got the definition of cultural and symbolic. I cannot talk today. Artifacts about the time needed to review content that would be delivered. So we're talking about the content here. So this, again, is no ordering down of time content. If anything, the rigor's picked up. So let's talk about curation. Curation is a collection of those ideas and thoughts and concepts. All these things that you've been putting out there, all these things that they've been doing. So say, for instance, I'm going back to my example. She and I are going to, we're engaging in this cipher, and I've created, I'm in there and I'm collecting all this information about her. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all that together in my poetic insult at her. That's curation, right? We just collect all the stuff together. So curation, we're talking about digital form, video form. There's several different forms you can use it in, but I got a couple of examples. Y'all know this, right? Class Dojo is a curation. My daughter absolutely loves this thing, right? So I got she should be a 2nd grader next year now. And I remember when we was in kindergarten, it was kind of like, how are we going to keep them engaged? And they gave her this little monster with the one eye. She come home and she calls it her Maddie Monster. My daughter's name is Madison. And she said, Daddy, Maddie Monster didn't get many points today. And she would come home every day, and everything was based off that point system. That point system was my daughter's motivation. Daddy, I got 2 helping others today. Dad, I got listening really well today. And this is causing her to engage. So now I'm able to have this conversation with her teacher. It's like, she really likes these points. And she was like, yes, I know her and all the other kids, right? And she was like, okay, but you can use this to your advantage, right? So then she was like, I got 2 more points for reading. And then when it got to the first grade teacher this year said, I typically didn't use it, but I heard it worked really well. I said, it works extremely well with my daughter. You won't have no problems if you use this. And then she started using it, and she got to the end like, if you got 20 points total by the end of the week, you get to go to the treasure box. And every week she come on, Daddy, I got 19. I didn't get to go to the treasure box today. And she looked forward to it. And I know, there's so much information out there now about using games and gaming to get students to understand this is not just video games, but all kinds of other games and stuff to get them motivated to the point. It's kind of like what we say in the country, you got to prime the pump. I know I'm dating myself now. My grandma, where I grew up in North Carolina, she had a pump. And every now and then, you go out there to go pump some water, and it just did not do anything. So what you did was you took some water, and you poured water in it to start the suction. Then all of a sudden, you get the water. This is what all this stuff is. This stuff is just primers, y'all. To get them engaged in the learning process, to see, this learning thing is kind of cool. I like being smart. I like this class. I like science. I didn't know I liked math like this. And then this opens up that gateway for you to do all the other cool stuff and bring in even more rigor, because now not only do they trust you, you're part of their community. Are y'all following me? No, so they used to tell me in church, if they all silent, that means either they listening or they sleep, right? So, other pieces. This is my good friend Lamar. Y'all ever heard of him? Oh my goodness, I got to show y'all his work. And he does rap all math, and he is phenomenal. I got actually 2 of his CDs. I'll play one as we do our part. And content is good, it's great. And the kids, we introduced some of this stuff in our work, and the kids were taking the stuff, memorizing the raps. So now they learned all the algebra from Mr. QT. And he's a middle school math teacher in California. And had this, other ability he could do, and he took the information. So he curated in that way. He put all this stuff in rap form, And he has videos that he's made, and then in the videos, he actually has the information floating across the screen. So as he rap it just kind of pop up like it's being dictated. So it's pretty nice. So then this brings on this thing of competition. Competition is not a bad thing, right? And we know if competition is used in a healthy format, then it can be very good. So when we talk about competition now, going back to her again, I'm just picking on you all week, right? Well, just today. She and I are in a competition. I'm studying harder. I'm going to make sure all my stuff and all my rhymes right, and the music is good and everything is tight. Why? Because I want to be better than her. And in the spirit of competition and peer pressure, hopefully she wants to be better than me. So she's going to look and say, okay, you know, you ain't got on red bottoms and you ain't got this and you don't have that and you sweating a whole lot because that means you fat. And I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? That's what they do. But now think about that in the term of the context of the math that they're doing. And like I said, I'll be able to show you this in a minute. So my goal today was I wanted to, number one, introduce you to reality pedagogy. And let's talk about this a little bit, hip-hop ed as the method. You know, MEHTOD, man. No, y'all don't know Wu-Tang. I forgot. I'm old. I'm dating myself. So method, the method here, progressive hip-hop, actually this is a ongoing dialogue that happens on Twitter. Every Tuesday at 9 p.m., Dr. Emdin does basically a virtual online Twitter chat with the hashtag hip-hop ed. And they talk about a little bit of everything. And we have all kinds of people engaged in the education community through this. And like I said, if you're not familiar with Emdin's work, he's at Columbia in New York. So, y'all know this guy, right? Benjamin Bloom. And the revised Bloom taxonomy. So we're talking about these components of the Get lesson. You already know these. I'm assuming again. I'm going to go through them. So you have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So how does this change or not change it? And what it doesn't change, it just add another layer of complexity to it to help you get through it. So let's talk about it. Same thing here, just a different form. Planned. Hip-hop ed is deliberate. It's a strategy. I'm deliberate in what I'm doing. I'm not just doing stuff because I feel good. I'm very deliberate about it in the sense that I'm creating. Then I'm evaluating because I got to be deliberate about the creation of it so I know how to evaluate it. You know, as a mathematician and working in statistics, the easiest tests to run are the ones that you preset. Meaning that, okay, if I want to know I want to run a t-test or I want to run a ANOVA, I know I need to collect this, this, and this, and I know the data need to be normalized. And what do? You make sure all that stuff is done when you collect the data. If not, you don't know what test you're going to be able to run because you might not collect it enough or you didn't collect enough of the right stuff, right? So you already coming up with evaluation pieces before you even get there. That's part of the creating part. Then, of course, the analyzer. Okay, out of this, hopefully they'll get this, 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 and this. Same thing, but this is just what? The condensed hip-hop version of it, right? Implement. Delivery is everything. You can have the coolest rhymes and be off beat. It doesn't matter, right? It's a flow to it, right? You know, I don't dance. I just don't have those bones in my body. So, you know, if I try, y'all just stop me. But delivery is everything. So this is how we apply it. So you can do all this great work above me and suck in your delivery, and you don't pass. You do not get to go past go. So delivery is important. And this delivery part, what comes with some of the context part, you know, maybe this is me using some YouTube videos or me talking about maybe, you know, this latest game that all these little boys play called Fortnite. See, I try to be relevant. I ain't taught in years. When I go mentor, the little boys say, oh, you got to download Fortnite, man. So I download it and I can never get on it, but I know what it is. Do you see what I'm saying? These are the kind of things. Maybe you go in there and look around at Fortnite. What can I use in Fortnite? Because I saw just by the response of the room that it's a big deal to some of you in your classes. Now think about it. You know your context. If you was able to bring in Fortnite, it's a game changer, right? Absolutely. So take a little time. This is you going to what? Reality pedagogy. What is in Fortnite that can be used here? My understanding, they do a lot of buying and selling and all kinds of stuff in creation. And what can I do to support the content? I need them to get to do this. Well, how do I get them to do that? This is where you as the teacher get to use all this creativity you have. That's where the work comes in. And you don't have to do it alone. So that's the other thing too. You know, if you never heard of Fortnite, if you're one of those ones that didn't raise your hand when I said that, that was your opportunity to say, hey, what is that? Can you, because has to be a safe space. For so long, teaching, we've gotten to the point now that everybody, you know, I got my scores, you got your scores, and it's just a competition between the adults. And that's what teaching never was meant to be that way. It was about what all of us willfully sharing information and knowledge. So then delivery is also the understanding, because if you understand it, you'll deliver it appropriately. Then the assessment, accountability. Why do we get tested? Accountability. If everybody did what they said they was going to do and did it the way that they said they were going to do it, we wouldn't need testing. But we all know that's not true. So since it's not true, we have to what? Have this accountability thing. Remembering, meaning bring this back to knowledge. I'm testing them there. You doing all this stuff. You got them jumping across the classroom. You got them doing round clock type stuff, which he got from, I ain't gonna say. Anyway, he's from, you know, he went to school in North Carolina anyway. But, yeah, because I'm on camera. All right, but the accountability piece of the remembering, all this stuff y'all see them doing, this is where this stuff come from. It's nothing new. Just somebody wrote about it before everybody else did. And that's typically what it is. That get written gets passed down right. All right, so at this point, my job here today is I want you to get here, and we're going to create. Now, if you notice here, I've talked all these hip-hop terms and some of the terminology, but I've not asked you to rap. I asked you to do all this. I know that's what people automatically think when they hear that. And it's not. It's more of a culture. It's a way of expression. And we want them to be able to express the mathematics through their culture. So here, what we're going to do is 4 things. Number 1, you're going to come up with a teaching objective, something you want to teach your kids. We're going to work on that right now because he told me this is a workshop, so I got some time. So number 1, you're going to come up with an objective that you want to work with. You know, maybe you want them to understand rationalizing the denominator or something. Okay? Then what we're going to do is talk about the things that you think you need to get to accomplish that objective. And then what we're going to do, we're going to help each other to figure out how they fit into cogents. What part of this is appropriate for co-teaching? Because all of it's not appropriate, right? And there's some things you just know you can't reasonably ask them to do. But there are some things you can ask them to do and help them assist you. Then we'll talk about the cosmetology, context, content, and then the competition curation, how you pulling all this back together and how you're going to assess them at the end. And assess them through code switching. You know, if you're using this, well, know that in North Carolina we have what they call the intergrade testing. So if you calling it, one of my teachers said, well, you always flip it. You know, it's really the reciprocal. So in the test, they're going to say the reciprocal. So yeah, when you're saying flip it, also know that flipping really means take the reciprocal, right? Because we use a lot of terminology. I had this one amazing teacher in Fayetteville, and she does all this thing like through Mario Brothers. She teaches algebra using Super Mario Brothers. Kids absolutely love it, right? And I remember one time, one of my student teachers was there, and he said, well, if we do it that way, you can't save the princess. And I was like, all right. Save the princess? Oh, yeah, you know, in Mario Brothers, you know, at the end of everything, you're trying to save the princess. So she tells them, if you do this and you do this and you do that, you save the princess. And I'm like, I understand what you're doing. I understand what you're saying. But sometimes some of them didn't finish it off. So like, okay, at the end of the day now, okay, the princess is saved, but what you're really doing is, this is an equal sign. This means equality, which really says that both of these sides are supposed to be equal, no matter what I do to it. So a lot of us get to the point, we get, oh, they got it. They do whatever we want to do. But then when we get these standardized tests that are holding us accountable, then our kids don't perform. They're like, well, he got A's in your class. Why he get C or